So I'm Jane Paul, president of the La Crosse Area League of Women Voters, and I'm happy to welcome you all here on behalf of the board. Today, we're also really happy that Debra Cronmiller, our CEO of the State League, was able to make it. There was some accident on the highway, so it delayed her a little bit, but we're very happy to hear from her about some important topics today. We're also happy to be back at the waterfront, and I say this as if I am happy to be back at the waterfront, like I know about this, but I really don't, because I joined the league during COVID when we just shut down everything, and so all I know mostly is people on Zoom. So it's really fun to get to see people in person and put names with faces, because it's not just old hat to me to be here. I really appreciate it. While we are at our tables, I want to point out there's some flyers on the tables as we are resuming more activity and getting ready for a very busy 2024 election season. We have lots of opportunities for people to work in small groups with the league to do the business of the league. And so one of those things is the Vote 411 information and project, which Deb Luchan will talk to you about more later. Another one is technology assistance. As you can see, I've been up here doing things, and it'd be nice for me not to have to do that. So if anybody's interested in learning more about it, we've kind of got it fine-tuned. We have a doctorate in engineering here to help, and so she's got bugs worked out pretty good. And so we were happy to have anyone help that might be interested in that. And then the other thing is the candidate forums. Again, with all the elections coming up, we have a list of them on the information table. There's several, it's coming right up. It's February, and there's probably going to be primaries for city council or the county board and school board. So we're expecting to be invited to participate in a lot of candidate forums, and that's a good opportunity to get to know people that are running for office and to help the community understand the people that are running too and know more about their background. So we welcome anyone that might be interested in that. And on the table with each one of those different topics, there is a name and a contact information to get more close information about that. I would like the board members to stand today so that you can just see that. If you have questions, you kind of know who you can go over to. So if the members of the board that are here today could stand up. Okay, so we've got Debra Bufton is our program chairperson, and Robin Schmidt is the chair of the membership group. Rhonda Akeson is our secretary, and Barb Roberts is our social media, one of our communications experts. And so appreciate you being here, and don't feel free to ask them any questions that you might have. At this point, I'll mention that we are a nonpartisan, nonprofit political organization that encourages the informed and active participation of citizens in government. We also work to increase understanding of major public policy issues and take action on public policy positions as established through member study and agreement. As a nonpartisan organization, we do not support or oppose any political party or candidate. The League of Women Voters is an organization that is committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion in principle and in practice as we work to perfect our union. And I'll remind you today that we are being recorded, so this program will be available on our website, I believe starting tomorrow. It takes some time to prepare that, but our website is noted on your documents at the table. And after Debra's presentation, we will be taking some questions. So be thinking as you're listening. If you're at home, you can type in a question at the bottom of the screen. And then now Debra Luchan will, from the program committee, is going to introduce today's speaker more completely.
Thank you. Yes, before we do the introduction of Debra, this month the commercial for volunteers is about Vote 411. I do need people to help with the candidate forum, so please speak to Leslie. Her name is on that handout. She was the ad last month. So several of us, about 5 years ago, I think this is about the 5th year, decided that we, and the board approved that we would join the League of Women Voters US Vote 411 platform. How many people in this room have looked at the Vote 411 platform prior to an election? A few if you have. Good. Well, before the next election, please go to Vote 411. Because when we get to the local candidates, which is what we're interested in, many times we say, who are these people? I live in the town of Sparta. And right now, I can't even tell you who is on the town board. You know, it comes to election, I ask my husband, do you know any of these people? Who are these people? So that is why nationally, there really is a push for local leagues to be involved. I want to thank the local league for participating. I especially want to thank Martha Linville, who about 5 or 6 years ago, when I said, who's going to help us, raised her hand and did a lot of work on getting our platform set up. The technology part, thank you, Martha did that. Now it's Ina Felchai, who works for Amazon. So we do find people who are not afraid of computers and can help us with that. The Vote 411 platform is a voter education tool. If you can make phone calls, sending emails is a bonus. That's all you need to know how to do to help us out. I was impressed as I started working on it that when you look at all the locals, county, city, town, school boards, there's like 100 citizens that in January say, I will join local government, or I'm interested in running for local government. We need people to adopt like 10 to 15 of those people and invite them to participate on the platform. So that's all you need to do to help us out. My name and email and phone number is on that list. I hope that you will let me know that you will join the team. Earlier this year, we contacted 95 candidates for local office. About half of them respond. And when we have contested races, over 80% of them responded to our invitation to be on the Vote 411 platform, which means people, at least if they go there, they will have the names of the candidates. And we have questions that then they answer that are pretty basic. So we just ask our volunteers to adopt a few, call them, tell them what it's about, and invite them to respond to an email about that. So please join our Vote 411. We have detailed instructions, timelines, sample scripts. The work is done about 2 weeks before an election. There's a little work ahead of that. Reviews. Rhonda was on our team last year. And it's kind of fun, actually, to contact local candidates, especially if you are one of their constituents. Disappointing when they don't participate. So, time required is just to make some phone calls about 2 weeks before absentee voting begins. So, please join our Vote 411. It's going to be busy early 2024. So, now I'd like to introduce our speaker, Debra Cronmiller. Debra joined the State League of Women Voters staff as Executive Director in January 2020. Previously, she served as President of the state's Board of Directors. Her employment background is in nonprofit management and human services. Her experience includes managing a homeless shelter. She was the TANF administrator for the state of Wisconsin and director of the Department of Workforce Development's Job Service. She has over 30 years of volunteer experience with the League in various leadership positions. She's a member of the Madison Downtown Rotary, serves on the board of directors of Community Shares of Wisconsin. Last December, Debra and Sue Jenick, who is the state legislative chair, provided through one of our webinars an overview of the League of Women Voters Wisconsin Legislative Committee and how local members can be involved through advocacy and participation in state level committees. That recording is also on our lacrosse website. So if you get inspired to be more involved as a advocate on legislation that's going on, please go to that. You can review the recording. If you go to the State League, you can sign up to get legislative alerts. Because today we look forward to learning about specific issues that are important to our commitment to defending democracy. I apologize for my voice going this way. So Deborah, thank you for coming. I'm sorry you had such a difficult travel experience. We're glad you made it safely.
Thank you so much. Before I begin my prepared remarks, a shout out to Robin Schmidt, who is a proud member of your league and member of our state board of directors and a member of our legislative committee. So if you have questions, she's probably your local go-to. All righty, what I'd like to do today is kind of give you an overview of a number of both national and state initiatives that we are working on, and kind of bring you up to date on what is happening in our legislature with regard to some election systems that as a local league you may or may not want to consider. As you're all looking at the screen, NPVIC, National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. I'll be talking about it a little bit more. I forget that I talk in jargon sometimes. Okay, all right. I want to impress upon you all that everything that is happening now at the National League level has been, started many, many years ago in 2016. We're on what is called a transformation journey. And there's much information on the national website about the transformation journey. There's information on our website about that. But really, this is an organizational change, a purposeful change that will help grow our membership and help us have the opportunity, therefore, to make more impact in the democracy space. Okay. Part of this overall strategy of change is called our moonshot goal. And Selena Stewart, who is the chief counsel at LWV US, is actually leading this effort across the nation. And she will be a guest speaker, by the way, on our issues briefing that's coming in November. But moonshot itself is an overarching goal to abolish the electoral college. But our national leaders realize that starting out with let's abolish the electoral college might fall on deaf ears. One, because many people don't understand the electoral college. And two, those who do might think it would be impossible to get rid of this system after all these years. So this is a multi-decade initiative that we are embarking on. The first step of this multi-decade initiative, the moonshot, is actually to pass the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact in this nation. The National Popular Vote Interstate Compact is a way to replace what is our current winner-take-all election system that exists in 48 of 50 states. In Wisconsin, we have 10 electoral votes. Whatever federal candidates win the election in Wisconsin by popular vote get all 10 of our votes. That's what winner take all is. And this system is weak in some regards, and I'm going to explain a little bit why. So first of all, winner take all is not in the Constitution. We all made it up in the late 1800s. And it's got problems. And the first problem is that when the candidate with the most popular votes in a state wins, you have a situation that is created where the candidate who has the most popular votes throughout the nation may lose, which doesn't seem like the kind of representative government we would all be advocating for as legal women voters. In fact, in our 46 presidential elections to date, 5 times presidents who did not win the popular vote in. You can just take that forward.
Do you mind if I just pause a minute?
Sure.
I think we can do this better.
Okay.
And,
I'm always for better.
okay. I just,
Well, Deb has suggested I talk to you about something else in the interim here. There's lots to talk about. On Monday of this week, the Fair Maps Coalition, which I have the pleasure to chair, actually held a public telling on AB 415, the redistricting piece of legislation. We had legislators in the room. We had people from all over the state who came to voice their opinions about AB 415. Everyone spoke in opposition to AB 415 and the way it was promulgated through the assembly. You probably are all aware, on Tuesday, late in the afternoon, this bill was introduced on the floor. It was called for a vote on Thursday evening and passed the assembly. 48 hours, no public input, no committee engagement, so no research, no anything. This is not good government. And this is why we wanted to bring an opportunity to the people of Wisconsin to have their voices heard when our government was stifling their voice. And I'm pleased to let you know that over 20 people shared testimony. 2 elected officials, Debra Cronmiller in the Assembly and Senator Jeff Smith in our Senate House chamber, came and spoke from their perspectives. And I'll share with you one thing that Jeff Smith said was that he's been in the Assembly and the Senate now for many years. And in 2011, when our first gerrymandered set of maps were being crafted, he tried hard at that moment in time to convince the legislature that we needed a nonpartisan way to draft maps. And he said it fell on deaf ears because the Democrats would not go along with this because they wanted their opportunity at some point to be able to break the maps in their favor. And so he said it happens on both sides of the aisle. We see that in the nation. Our state to the south, Illinois, is just as badly gerrymandered for the Democrats as we are for the Republicans at this moment in time. We see it in Massachusetts, and there's many examples of very severe gerrymanders. And the way to solve the gerrymander problem is to really take the map drawing process out of the hands of our elected officials, who are indeed, as Jeff pointed out, motivated to keep power. And so by moving it, as the Wisconsin is suggesting, to an independent commission, and there are various theories for how we get an independent commission, but it takes the legislature out of the drawing process, out of the access to the partisan data that they might have, and puts it into kind of a math algorithm that would just be based on what is defined in our Constitution and statutes for what a map should be based on. Neither the statutes nor our Constitution say, oh, incumbents should be able to pick their voters, and that's not part of the rule system. So we are on record in opposition to 415, and yesterday, Lemonhew brought it forward in the Senate, and we're hoping that it will go through committee. It was referred to committee. We are hoping it will have a public hearing. We are hoping it will fail in the Senate. And if it doesn't, we are hoping our governor, who is also on record saying that he will oppose it, will veto that particular piece of legislation. But we still need to be working individually, organizationally, on getting an independent, nonpartisan, inclusive map drawing process for the state of Wisconsin. It is wrong that, you know, year after year, our citizens, you know, respond to polls and say what is important to them, that they want full funding, public education, that we want Medicare expansion in the state, we want clean air, we want clean water. And what we get is none of that. Doesn't even come in front of the legislature as a bill, because those in power have a different agenda. Their agenda is to ensure that that they keep up. That's the long and the short of it. So it's near and dear to all of our hearts. I hope that we pass this or that we, you know, oppose this, but that we at some point in time here in the state of Wisconsin actually achieve a nonpartisan map drawing process. I really hope this happens by 2030, because that will be our next census cycle. We have litigation right now in the Wisconsin Supreme Court that was brought forward by Law Forward on August the 2nd. This would be a short-term fix, and don't confuse the long-term fix with the short-term fix. If our Supreme Court says our maps are indeed not contiguous, are indeed a separation of powers, which are the two complaints that our Supreme Court decided to take that were brought, we will have an opportunity to draw different maps, and the Supreme Court will decide who and how those maps will be decided. But again, those maps will only be in effect, whatever the map would get redrawn, until 2030. And then we will start the map drawing process again. And unless we have that long-term fix, legislation or a constitutional amendment will be in the same boat. So it's a lot of work to do in just a few number of years.
Debra.
I have a
Yes.
question. Oh,
Please.
Are you ready to
Go
go?
ahead. No, go ahead.
Iowa has that, but don't they have a neutral commission or something?
They do. They have an independent, we call it a, where's Jay when I need him? It's a specialty group that is only formed every 10 years in order to do this process. AB 415 was introduced, and a number of its co-sponsors, Republicans, indicated that what was being introduced was the Iowa model. Do not be fooled. What was introduced is not the Iowa model. Iowa has many checks and balances, guardrails that would prevent the kind of partisan shenanigans that this bill would allow. Now, the least of which is that if an independent commission once formed, and in AB 415, they're recommending that the Legislative Reference Bureau would be our map drawers. Itself a dubious decision because the legislature actually controls the LRB. But let's say they do, and they get some fair maps in front of the legislature. The legislature in this particular version, AB 415, they would have the opportunity to strike that down twice. And then they can put up whatever they want. And they need a simple majority in order to instate it. So that's completely different than what's happening in Iowa. Iowa is very clear that maps that are not agreed upon by the legislature and the governor would go immediately to the courts. There's no such backstop in this particular piece of legislation. There's no supermajority needed to pass an amended map. And so those are just in 2019, in 2021, we've worked on the piece of legislation to get it right. And this is not that. And that's why we stand in opposition.
Thank you. You know, Debra, I'm wondering if I might get you a copy of the slideshow and just let you.
I can talk it through. You don't have to read the slides. You can look at it.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
All right. With fair maps? Keep it in the public conversation. You know, we need people talking about how important it is that they get what they're not getting from this legislature. Not the least of which is the heady, kind of League of Women Voters representative government, a good democracy. But we're not getting clean water. We're not getting clean air. When, our DNR has failed to pass a groundwater standard. That's governing. They need to govern. And so we need to keep talking about what we're not getting because of the gerrymander. And we need to really be, in your newspapers, in your forums that you sponsor as a league, in programs and this kind of lunch and learn, keep people thinking about how important and how impactful the gerrymander is on our daily life here in Wisconsin. Oh, it's back. Okay, all right. So we were talking about winner take all and why candidates who in this scenario could not win the popular vote, but actually could become president. And in fact, these 5 people in our history have become president despite losing the national popular vote. The next problem with a winner take all system is that it drives the purple states to decide for the whole nation, essentially. And that's not representative government. Every voice should count, every vote should be equal. And when a few states can actually determine the outcome of a federal election because of the winner take all system, we've lost that. The other thing it does, and this is for all of us, I think, very near and dear to our hearts, is that here in Wisconsin, we are a battleground state. We see all the candidates. We get a lot of money to bring, candidate positions and opinions, and they come and visit us frequently. But in states that are a done deal, if you're in California, you're going blue, that's it, you're a done deal. They don't get a candidate visit. They don't get advertising on their television. A couple of years ago, my nephew, who lives in Massachusetts, came to Wisconsin on a little trip to see us, and we had to take him to the Democratic office and the Republican office so he could pick up materials, because in Massachusetts, where he lives, they don't even have offices because they're a done deal. The candidates do not need to be putting out any information, and that results, as you all can tell, in great voter apathy. Why come? The dialogue, for some, it is true. My vote doesn't count. It's gonna go this way anyway. My vote doesn't. The third problem is that, as I was just saying, we get all the attention at the expense of some of the other states getting any attention. And that's not democracy as we would have it be. This is a picture of how many visits that different states got. The ones with no number in got no visits from any candidate, vice president or president. We got 18 here in Wisconsin. Michigan got a few more. Florida got the most. Oh no, actually Pennsylvania got the most. But this is the part and parcel of the problem. When you're winner take all, each of those states' electoral votes are what they're trying to get as a candidate, because that's what's going to turn the tide for them in a winner take all system. And then the final problem is that winner take all actually has a built-in bias, and it's a bias, frankly, against smaller states. And you can see here in Wyoming that it's massive 3 electoral votes, and a population of 586. The number of people per vote is 195. In Florida, where they've got 29, many more, but many, many more people in Florida. And so it takes 648,000 people essentially to get 1 electoral vote going. And this is not the system we want. We want every vote to be counted equally. And this is not equal. And this is a bias that's built into the electoral college. All right, so you're probably asking yourself, what do you do? Same question Deb just asked me a moment ago. know where to get your resources. We have resources on our website. We have, we've done webinars, we've got print materials, there's toolkits. Work to help pass national popular vote interstate compact here in Wisconsin. It's been introduced for a number of years in our legislature, doesn't even get a public hearing. I know that surprises you all. But the reality is this is not a Republican issue or a Democratic issue. This is a citizen issue. And this is why we should all be fighting to have our voices heard equally throughout the United States. Understand how it fits into our transformation, that this is the kind of impact the league wants to have. We want to abolish the electoral college. That's big, very big. It's going to take every state's leagues, to get this accomplished. And it's going to take time, but if we can make this change, if we can be the driving force behind this change, the place that the league has always had in the democracy space just got elevated. And that's what we're looking for as an organization. And then make sure you are communicating with me or with the national staff about your questions or your concerns, or I got this question from somebody at our forum, I didn't know how to respond to it. That feeds information into the cycle. We can all update our fact sheets and really become more proficient in how to get this. All righty. We're going to talk a little bit about the whole big goal of abolishing the electoral college. But keep in mind, why the Interstate Compact is the first step, is that we've got to get people thinking about, one person, one vote, equal to everyone else's, and understanding the popular vote concept. Because we've been, 200 plus years in a winner-take-all system. It's what people know, it's what they expect, and we've got to get that mind shift going, and we do that through education and communication. Okay, the transformation journey that we are on has got a number of moving pieces, and I'm going to deviate a little bit here for those of you who might be friends of the league and not part of the league. But part of this transformation journey is about big impact. But part of it is about making this organization a little bit more efficient. We've set out a number of goals since 2016 to lessen our administrative burden, to establish systems for true growth, and to increase our impact. The way that the National League is proposing to lessen administrative burden for leagues across the nation is to move to a standardized dues system. Join in one place portal, essentially. Right now, our 20 leagues here in Wisconsin, you all have your own dues. You set them as a board, you collect them in the manner in which you feel fit, you set your own renewal cycle for those dues, you chase people when they don't renew, you're doing all of the work. The idea behind centralized membership is that it becomes equal across all league members across the nation. And this is big. This is a very big concept, and it's a very big change for this organization. But keep in mind, we've only had dues for 50 years. So we've made big changes before. We went from no dues to paying dues. That was a big change. Now it's just how we pay the dues is the big change. We really, the nature, the idea here is that every league will have on their website a join button. So your website would have a join button. It will accompany your donate button, which will be now two different things. Joining will be just paying of member dues, and donating will be supporting your local league. And for all of us who for 50 years have kind of merged those two ideas, now is the time that we start educating ourselves on how to unmerge those two ideas. Because if local leagues are going to grow and going to sustain themselves in the manner in which we all think we want to, and makes us more effective, makes us able to have more impact, we will need to have as many local resources as we currently have. And what National is learning, and I have known for too long, is that local leagues don't like to ask for money. It's like a fear factor thing. But we're going to have, and we're going to have to ask for it, not in the nice ladylike way we've been asking for it, which is pay sustaining dues just instead of the dues. And then people do, they up their dues payment, and that goes to you. Well, that's not going to go to you under this model. It's going to get split up according to the formula. And so we have to just be cognizant and prepared and ready to talk to our members about how to support ourselves. One thing that this will do, for those of you who have been chasing member dues, is that National will take the responsibility of sending all those annoying emails. And they will also create opportunities where members can automatically join each year. And it's like a back door, you know, take it out of your credit card, take it out of your bank account each year without a reminder. So it's like kind of a proactive, you would have to end your membership versus what we do now, which is you have to start it every single year. So we think this is a growth strategy. And then for all of us, the intent is that we'll be less burdensome. This is the structure, different from what we see now. Now we pay PMP and PMA to the state and to the national leagues. But when all the money is going to the portal or the centralized place, 33% of the dues and the dues amount will be $75. 33% will go to national, 47% to state, and 20% to local. I should mention that they have set a floor of $20, and they are now talking about, because we all push back on that, because we have many local leagues here in Wisconsin that slide to zero. And that was a membership growth strategy that we implemented years ago. We would like the floor to be zero. National League is very conscious about nefarious players trying to infiltrate our ranks to undo the league's good reputation. And so they think if you have to put in at least $20, that would stay off, that anyone can join without any skin in the game kind of thing. So that's still under discussion, but for right now, 20 is the proposed floor. As I was mentioning before, additional dues get divvied, so they don't come completely to your league. We have talked with National League. We've got many people who don't like to use online payment portals, PayPal, that sort of thing. So you will still be able to pay by a check. And when you do the online stuff, you will be able to put in some individual information, all that demographic information we've been sending out to you, your president, every year to collect up on all of you. This we could collect up at the national level, and then it could come back down to us versus every local league having to try to figure out how to do that for themselves. Again, an efficiency. These are the assumptions from the structure change. More growth. National will cover us in the interim. So the first couple of years, if your league actually sees a decline for whatever reason, none of us are projected to see a decline. But if you would, they'll make you whole. They'll make you whole. We have hopefully more data that we'll be collecting, and that will help us tell the story of who we are a little bit better. They are predicting at the national level that at minimum, we should see a 5% growth within the first 5 years. The aspirational growth rate is more close to 30%. And this translates into real money for all the levels of league over what we're taking in today. So your league will benefit financially from this change. All right. This is more detail. I'm going to just skip ahead. You can look at that when you see the slideshow. All righty. The last thing that Jane had asked me to talk about was the electoral system, ranked choice voting, and different systems that we have considered. I want to start with the league at the national level does not have a position supporting any electoral system. So local leagues make their decisions, state leagues make their decisions, but the National League is not telling us as an organization, we're going to support ranked choice, or we're going to support final five, that they feel like those are decisions that need to be made at the lesser level than at the federal level. Our legislature has introduced a piece of legislation that has the following proposed election system change. One, we would move from partisan primaries to open primaries. And now keep in mind, in Wisconsin, in the primary elections, if you all go back in your mind to the last time you were in a primary election, you got a ballot. All of the parties' candidates were listed on that ballot. But it very clearly told you that you can only vote in one party. And in fact, voting across party spoils your ballot. So, we put out a lot of information about that. Your poll worker will tell you that when you pick up your ballot. Your clerk will tell you that if you're voting early. But, so we have a closed primary essentially. We're different than some states that would make you declare the primary that you have to vote in 30 days ahead, 180 days ahead. So whatever predisposition you have on the day you vote in Wisconsin, you can vote in that particular party. But you can't cross race in the primary. So we would open this up. So in the primary, all of the candidates for a specific race with their party designated probably next to their name, R, D, I, green, whatever, you could choose. So you'd have to listen to the candidates, decide who you like, whose values align with yours. And that might not be the two Democrats in the list. It might not be the two Republicans. It might be an independent and a Republican. It might be a Green Party candidate. It might be, any combination of those things. That is a significant change. It also is a significant voter change. So now there's a burden on the candidates to actually be talking to you, voter, about who they are, what they're going to do for you as an elected official. But we get more burden, I think, shifted to us as voters to not just be lazy and say, oh, I'm checking that R box. That's what I've always been an R. I'm checking that D box. I've always been a D. You have to think a little bit more in an open primary about who the people really are, what their values really are. So once we have our primary completed, then we would move to the final five. So whoever achieved the most votes in the primary will be on the ballot, and the five most vote-getting candidates will be on the ballot. And then we'll kind of do it again in the general election. You'll only have the five candidates to choose from. They will not be party designated. They will be the five candidates. And you as a voter will have to rank them 1 through 5. And the reason to do that is because we're trying to get through a 50% majority vote for any single candidate. That is a democracy, if you will. So in counting the general election ballots, the first go through is everybody's first choices are counted. If no first choice candidate achieves that 50%, then the lowest first choice getter, candidate with the least first choices, they would be eliminated from the mix. But all of the second choices for those ballots that have been eliminated now get brought back in to the 4 remaining candidates. So the second choices become first choices until, and we keep doing this until one of the candidates emerges with 50% of the vote. So that's what's being proposed. It is in play in some states already, and some municipalities already. Again, the league does not have a position, but locally, if you want to do this for your local races, your league could study this and create a position and advocate for it as a change of election system in La Crosse, Wisconsin. All right. Okay, I think I talked through all this already. Yeah, okay. All right, here's for us. These are the big talking points about why the system that is being considered here in Wisconsin might be beneficial for us as voters and, you know, align with our organizational priorities. One, as I was saying before, it really does enhance representation. Candidates have to listen to you because you actually voted for them. It wasn't just a party thing or money that dictated that, or, you know, it's every vote was counted. And then we also believe that this would incent our elected officials to stop doing what they're doing now, and it could be the Democrats doing this as well. But we would actually get more cooperation in government, where there's no, you know, right now, you're on one side of the aisle, you're on the other side of the aisle, and twain shall never come together. In this system, when an elected official is going to have to run again, they have to be, you know, accountable to us, the voters, because when they're not going to get that first choice. They're not going to get that second place. They're not going to get that third place. They're going to come in the bottom of the list. So, and that is, I think, the kind of governance modeling that we've all been advocating for 103 years. Of course, there's downsides. The just took me 10 minutes to explain this to you, and you are all very bright about election systems. So this will be difficult to explain to average voters, first-time voters, elderly voters, disabled voters. You know, you put it wherever you want, but it's not as easy in concept as winner take all. And then we're going to have to change our voting machines, and this is an expense. Will it be born at the local level, the state level? You know, who knows? But the machines have to be able to do this, because you can't hand tabulate, you know, ranked choice. It's just impossible. So there's a lot of things that are already underway. You know, the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act actually embeds federal dollars to make sure that every electronic tabulator would have this capacity. And so we just have to be aware that, you know, this is a small snowball rolling right now, but I think it's going to get to be very large, probably in the next 10 years or so. All right. Oops, I turned it off. I will open it up to the floor. I don't know where we are, Jane, with regard to time. Yes.
I just want to ask a question. I mean, can you just explain layman's terms about the electoral? I mean, I just heard constitutionally electoral college, then there is clear talking about U.S. California, how we can have a population of however many millions of people out there. Popular vote, and that's okay over here.
Yeah, I think, well, California is a good example, probably, because in California, or basically explain it more in layman's terms, how this the electoral college in layman's terms. The electoral college, you know, as I said, is a winner take all system. And if we look at a state like Wisconsin, you know, where we're 51-49, you know, that's pretty close. I mean, yeah, we send all 10 votes, you know, the prevailing, you know, candidate, but it's many people's voices are being heard. In California, where they tend to split closer to like 33% to 67%, the 33% are never going to get heard, never going to get heard, because they can't overcome that popular vote sentiment. So by doing every vote counts, essentially, so that 33% of California's millions of voters, so I'll make up the number, say 15 million voters, they get coupled with Texas's majority and Florida's majority, and, you know, Montana and South Dakota, and all of a sudden those votes could count. when we abolish the electoral college, we move away from the winner take all system. And no matter what, we know in a world where there is no electoral college, the president and the vice president will always have gotten the popular vote. And that is something we're not getting now, as we've seen in 5 times in our 46 presidential elections. We have not elected, well, we've not seated the president and vice president that did win the popular vote.
So I know that I have missed some programs along the way. Can you briefly say the compact issue?
Interstate compact is a precursor to the abolition of the electoral college. What it accomplishes is moving us a step closer to popular vote. It asks that states, through their legislatures, enact a law that would say for that state, they will agree that however the nation votes in the popular vote, they will send their electors to Washington with that vote. So in Wisconsin, let's say we elect a Donald Trump, but nationally, Biden has won by 7 million votes. In the electoral college system, our 10 electors go to Washington and vote for Donald Trump. In the interstate compact model, our 10 electors would go to Washington and vote for Joe Biden because he has won the popular vote across the nation. And that is a shift. And some people will be horrified about that shift because they'll say to themselves, but then my vote's not counting. But it's about empowering those 7 million other people's vote in addition to the votes of your state. And it's a shift. And that's why it's the interim step to the electoral college abolition, because there's probably a lot of people a lot of voters in the United States right now who won't think through the nuance of what's beyond my vote and think of how, if you think in terms of the popular vote, what you're really empowering is everyone. And, you know, it may be true that you disempower your own self, but for the good of the nation and having a seated president and vice president that actually represent the majority. Other questions? Yes, Robin.
Example is just gave. You have 10 delegates. Why wouldn't 3 go to 1 with 7 votes together based on the percentage of the state?
You know, this has been thought of and talked about. I cannot say what was in the mind of our National League, but for years and years and years, we've held the position to abolish the electoral college in favor of popular vote. I think what they're trying to do is stay away from an electoral college solution and move toward conceptual change toward popular vote. And if we keep talking about the electoral college and how to divide electoral college votes, we're still in the electoral college world. Yeah, so our goal, long-term goal, is to get gone the electoral college. So let's not tweak it, let's get it gone. Yes.
What does it take to actually abolish the electoral college after the transition?
It needs to come out of the Constitution. Well, I think this is why it's a 50-year plan and not a 10-year plan. I'm not wise enough, I guess, to navigate the very, treacherous water of what would be a constitutional convention. And there may be ways to amend the Constitution without calling convention. So as we have, 26 times or whatever. So I suspect that would be the strategy unless, in the interim, we've gone to constitutional convention and it didn't wreck things, maybe it made things better, maybe we'd be less afraid to try that. Yeah, I think all our money is, let's not go there. That's a risk that none of us really want to take, so.
Yep. I'm sorry, thank you for the question. I guess two things that go down. Not refinance, campaign finance, I probably have to sometime, and now they're like, you gotta be kidding, And number two, term limits, and I go, come on, 1 or 2 terms, can't you just, let's rotate this thing around, and then everybody, both sides, it doesn't matter. Oh, the Democrat, oh, no, you vote, you vote, you've been in there for 60, 30, 40, 50, I mean, could you please, this was never set up, what we call it, the legislation, it was never set up to be, I say lifers, but some of these guys have been in there for a long time, 90 years old.
And gals, can you say Nancy Pelosi? Okay, 2 questions were asked. One was about the campaign finance reform initiatives, and one is about the you just said, yes, term limits. Thank you. Let me take term limits first because that's easiest for the league anyway. The league actually is opposed to term limits. Let me tell you why. We vote. That's our term limit.
That's what you told me.
Yep. When we're done with that elected official, we go vote them out. If we want them again, we vote them in. Now, what we do know is there's a lot of shenanigans around incumbents and around gerrymandering incumbents into stronger districts. And, so this is why we're working on so many different fronts. But in general, the league's position is a pro-democracy position, which is it's the vote of the people that should determine who our elected officials are, not an arbitrary number of terms. So going back to campaign finance, the worst thing that's happened in the last 2 decades in the United States is Citizens United. That single decision created an opportunity for money to be a vote, essentially. It had opened what were closed historically gates for how much money could come in. There was a transparent system of declaring who gave you what money, how much, and there were limits on what they could give. After, Citizens United, we've seen the emergence of PACs and super PACs without the accountability for whose money is flooding into those organizations, and then how those dollars get redispersed to candidates. Needless to say, that's why in Wisconsin in April of 23, we saw a Supreme Court race or little purple Wisconsin, $51 million. $51 million. Think how much food that could buy for poor people, how much housing that could buy, how much education that could buy.
Why don't they contest that? And they said that's most in the history of any Supreme Court judge. Why don't we do that?
And well, I think that's the $1 million question, I think. There are people trying to overturn Citizens United's decision. It's got to go back to the Supreme Court, or it's got to be legislated, or executive order, I think would be too weak, would just last for a little time. But again, it goes to motivation. The elected people sitting in the chairs want to stay in the chairs. Okay, can we do one more?
I want to be sure I understand the open primary, final 5, and ranked choice. So in the final 5, that's the stage that I have some questions about. There is a possibility then that you would have more than one candidate from a single party than in the final 5.
In the final 5, you could in fact see a ballot that had all Democrats on it, or all Republicans on it, or all Green Party candidates on it. It uses the formula. So, and that, you know, that is a nuance to Final Five that we will never see in partisan primaries currently. We're always going to have, you know, a candidate from each of the parties emerge to be on the general election ballot. In ranked choice, there's or in Final Five, that's not the guaranteed outcome, because it really is, what are the favored candidates of the voters? And if the voters, you know, you're the Republican voter and you've listened to the 2 Democrats and the 3 Republicans, and you think to yourself, well, I actually think the 2 Democrats are stronger in my mind than these Republicans because they're so ideologically to one side of the aisle. I'm not there. So I'm more centric, and so are these guys. I'm going to put them in 1 and 2. So you could see very different general election ballots than we've ever seen, and probably would see.
And very different campaigns then. too,
Absolutely.
Because they have to differentiate themselves potentially from someone else in their party as well as.
Right.
Opposing parties.
Exactly. And I think it will lift up third parties because they're just as credible of candidates in this system as, you know, they won't be considered just spoilers. They won't be on a ballot to dilute the vote of what would be a sure win for one or the other major parties. Every candidate would have an opportunity to talk to every voter about their own values. And that's the big win of it. But again, it is a little complicated, and it is, you know, there's some downsides to it as well. So like counting the ballots, and, you know, in an environment like Wisconsin's, where we've had a lot of dialogue about the integrity of our elections, not that it's a good conversation to have, but it certainly is a conversation that's going on. You know, we can come with the truth as many times as you want, but when you've got people who want to believe that, you know, there were shenanigans in the actual elections themselves, that are, you know, our tabulators were hacked into by China, you know, whatever misinformation you want to insert there, you know, we know those things aren't true. We can say those words out loud, but the reality is there's a faction of people who just keep saying it out loud and want to believe it true, you know, so it's that's the power of mis and disinformation, right? So I will leave it there on that unhappy note. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you for your interaction, audience. For lots to think about and discuss, and I'm sure the conversation isn't over, but for right now, we'll move along. I just wanted to say then, thank you to the waterfront for Marissa has been a very good help for us, and obviously the tech team that just came and rescued us a little bit was great. And also a thank you to the program committee for working to put this together, and our social media group that puts out all of our advertisements and things on the Facebook and Instagram and the news channels. So we appreciate everybody's participation.
Yeah, in the newspaper too.
Was it good? Okay, I didn't see that today. Good. Thank you then to Barbara Soderin for her work with technology, and we will continue to try to learn and improve. And so if anybody's interested in working with us, we sure would appreciate help. I wanted to say that on November 5th, the La Crosse Chamber Chorale is going to present a program at the Congregational Church at 3 o'clock, and their season title is Actions Speak Louder Than Words. When they were putting this together and they were thinking about sponsorships, they thought about the League of Women Voters. Isn't that nice? And 100 years that we will have been in La Crosse in 24, it will be 100 years. So we were honored to be able to participate and support this concert. So if you're available and you want to come hear some great music that moves your heart and your actions, come to the Congregational Church on November 5th at 3 o'clock. Another program that's very important to our area, talking about elections in Wisconsin, is the program that's being sponsored by Community, I believe is the host group, but it's Save Our Republic with Lee Roush, who spoke to us in September. And he had said that there was going to be a fall meeting here in La Crosse with several of the state advisory council that's with that group. And so they do have set up a date for Wednesday, October 25th. And the program will be held at the La Crosse County Administrative Center from 6:30 to 8:30. Registration is required before going, but the program is going to feature people from the state that are working on election transparency, educating people on our electoral system in Wisconsin. Kathy Bernier will be here. You may be, most of you probably know Kathy. She was a county clerk and also a state representative and senator. Megan Wolf, our administrator at the Wisconsin Election Commission. Ginny Dankmeyer, our local county clerk. Nikki Elson, our city clerk, and Mike Hitch, this former speaker of the Wisconsin Assembly, will be giving the opening remarks. There's going to be more information at our website, lwvlacrosse.org, for you to sign up. And I think one thing I wanted to mention today was that, you know, we live in a democracy and we want to keep a democracy. And I think that these are important things to think about in light of people that are suffering around the world right now. So we need to re-energize ourselves and see what we can do to work with our neighbors and come up with non-violent solutions to problems. So thank you for coming and enjoy the afternoon.